Yeah, I grew up in Brady, was born in Brownwood, and other than college and the military, Brady's been my hometown, so I really like it. I think there's no replacement for a small town like that. So we've been married 17 years almost, and got married in 2002. She's from Brady also. It's my wife Sarah, and no regrets. So enjoyed a lot, and I think it gets better over time. So it's kind of like wine. I have no plans of moving away from Brady. Reason we moved back to Brady is so in the Air Force, kids are moved around a lot with their families. The Air Force is a really good environment. There's a good support, but I grew up kind of wild and free, is a way to put it, in a small town, and I wanted my kids to have that experience. I wanted them to have that individual identification of who they are. And so with that, I wanted to make sure that they grew up knowing that they're an individual, and then the group comes secondary to that. And they're getting to grow up wild and free. We homeschool some of our kids, and actually all of our kids, but at the moment we're kind of mixing that up. But one of my kids gets to ride his bike to our shop, works with us during the day a lot of times, and then he can ride his bike back. And then the homeschooling, you know, we can control more of making sure our kid is taught the appropriate things, not necessarily kind of far out stuff. We have a little more control over it. So, and our kids are turning out great. I'm really proud of what they're turning out. I joined September 11th, 2001 happened, and I ended up reporting to boot camp, to basic training on November 2001, and I served till April of 2008. I started off as an intercontinental ballistic missile maintainer. Easiest way to describe that for those who don't know it is, it's big missiles underground with nuclear warheads on it, and we have them throughout the north part of our country. So I did that for 3 years, and then I transferred over to be a military training leader at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. And that was a really good experience. I enjoyed that quite a bit. That was getting to see airmen go through tech training and learn to become good active airmen, and to maintain so my troops were avionics guys. Basically they worked on fighters, heavies, and then ground equipment on all the aircraft. It was really neat to get that experience, and I learned a lot from it, actually getting to see how people work and what works to motivate people and what demotivates people. It was a good experience. So what I learned in that time is, I don't know how to, it's kind of awkward to put it, but I'm a fighter. So leadership, not my direct leadership, but leadership above me wasn't crazy about me, because I had no problem with calling them out for the things that they were wanting us to do that were not appropriate or didn't even make sense. There was no logic behind it. So I enjoyed that aspect, and I grew in my confidence that I'm okay with challenging leadership. I'm not a yes man. I'm not a politician. My goal is to tell people what I believe is truth, and not necessarily go along to get along. So I have gone to the Capitol some to fight for our gun rights. So on the state level, we do have issues where they're trying to restrict our gun rights, or they're keeping us from using the rights that I believe are inalienable to us. And so I have gone down to the Capitol for committee hearings to try to voice a support in making sure that our rights are protected. It started so I got out of the Air Force in 2008, and when I came back here, that's when we had our financial crisis for the U.S. And instead of kind of holding the people accountable that were making the poor financial statements that got us into it, government bailed them out. They bailed out to the tune of $700 billion, and that's billion with a B, that's not million. So they took the guys who inappropriately managed their money, inappropriately invested their money, and bailed them out in a way that was not appropriate, and that's not what the federal government's supposed to do. And as far as the free market goes, we're supposed to let companies who make bad decisions fail, and let companies who make good decisions rise up in the economy. I think we really need to focus on what are the federal rights and what are state rights. I think that's the biggest issue, because I think for most part, people kind of don't understand the difference between the two, and the federal is very limited in power. So we need to make sure that we're sticking with what's within the federal rights and not letting the federal government overreach its boundaries of where it's supposed to operate in. That's my biggest concern. We still have abortion to deal with. I'm pro-life. I'm strongly against abortion. Gun rights are a big issue right now. We have people that call themselves Republicans that are trying to restrict our gun rights, and we need to make sure we hold them accountable and not let them be reelected into office also. We have representatives who just passed a the largest farm bill in the history of the United States. It's $900 billion. And you would think by calling it a farm bill that would have something to do with farming, but 90% of it has to do with social welfare programs. And then the other 10% does have to do with farming. But the issue with it is the money that is subsidized for the farming at that point, 90% of that money that's going to the subsidies is actually to big corporations. And they're paid not to grow crops. That's why they're involved in it. So the subsidy, which I'm not crazy about subsidies, but a subsidy is supposed to help, as far as in the agriculture department goes, it's supposed to help the family farmer, the small farmer. It's not supposed to prop up corporations and help them to grow bigger and increase their size. So I think we should take more of a look at pay attention to what bills are being passed, who's passing them, why they're passing them. And I think we should look at our representative. There's a good website called www.conservativereview.com. And on that website, you can actually look up your current congressman, your current senator, and you can see how they vote. And I think you'll be disappointed at what you find on there. And so a lot of people will come back into our districts and say what we want to hear, and then they go to Washington and they vote for something different. So I think what Trump's trying to do of pulling our troops out of a lot of areas is important. I don't think we're supposed to be the world police. I think that there's a lot of people, the people that you see fighting Trump right now, I think is an indication of more of who they are. I think if we really care about our troops, we're not supposed to send them into endless wars with no goal in mind. I think that's the worst thing we can do for a troop if we actually care about them. I think we need to bring them back home, let Congress decide what's appropriate, who our allies are, and where we're supposed to be at. And we should have goals listed for why we're there. My goal would be to try to get other congressmen to help reduce the size of the federal government, to reduce our spending, to not fund programs that are inappropriate, to get rid of more socialist type ideology that the federal government's doing. So let's basically go in, shrink government. Let's look at how the government receives its money, how it spends its money, and let's make sure we're being appropriate in how we use that. So. But a lot of candidates are being generic in what they're saying, and what they're doing is they're pandering for votes at that point. I think other candidates need to really dig in and tell what they actually believe, what their depth is. Do they understand the Constitution? Do they understand the fight that we've had for 250 years in our Congress to determine what republicanism is, and understand the difference between federalism and nationalism, and then that the federal government's not supposed to manage all the states. It's a group of people that have certain priorities, and that's it. So. I would say I'm a working class man, not a politician. I don't pander, I tell people what I feel. And then what I really believe in is individualism and self-governance. I think that that's the best way for us to govern. And I know I'm getting past the one sentence, but I think that it's the best thing we can do is have governance over ourselves. As long as we don't cause harm to someone else's life, liberty, or property, let us exist how we want to.